Life isn't fair. People are awful. Bad things will happen to us that we didn't choose or cause or deserve. When this happens, and it will happen, what is the best thing to think and do about it? That's what I want to talk about in this video. Maybe you were neglected or abused as a child. Maybe you've been bullied by peers. Maybe your boyfriend, your girlfriend, or your spouse has treated you poorly, has betrayed you, has been violent, has broken up with you or divorced you. Maybe a business partner has stolen your money. Maybe a fire, a hurricane, or a tornado has destroyed your home and you've lost your possessions. Maybe you've been fired or been impacted by a recession. Maybe you've been diagnosed with cancer or some other horrible illness or disease. Maybe you've been in a car accident that wasn't your fault. Maybe you've been a victim of a violent crime. The list can go on and on. There's many horrible things that can happen to us that we didn't cause and we didn't deserve. Anyone who has experienced any of these things could be called a victim. Harm has befallen them through no fault of their own. What I want to talk about is the difference between having been a victim and adopting what we'll call a victim mentality. I'm particularly interested in identifying where it is we can find power to make our lives the way we want them to be, and where we lose power, or how we might lose the power to do that. If we've been victimized by somebody else's actions, it makes sense, and I think we're still within our power to be angry, to be upset, to seek justice, to blame the perpetrator for what they've done, and to seek restitution. I think that that's a powerful thing to do. We may also be hurt and damaged by being victimized in this way and need to feel those feelings and express those feelings and receive empathy for that, support for that. There's a place for recognizing one's wounds and feeling them and getting support. That's definitely part of the healing process. However, we can get stuck there. I don't want to minimize that phase. That is an important phase, but I'm not going to focus on that. As important as it is, this phase of the initial healing from the trauma of victimization, the ways we can get stuck there are that there are benefits that we can get. And there are people who, maybe we'll call them empaths, but people who are very empathic, who will sit with us and listen to our complaints forever. And they will empathize with us, and they will validate our feelings. And this will feel good. This will feel good. We'll feel justified in feeling the way we feel. The problem is that these people who may show up to do this may be getting more satisfaction out of feeling good about themselves than about actually being of assistance. And the questions that they won't ask typically are, okay, I hear what happened. I feel with you. Now what? Now what can you do? What will you do? We may avoid people like that if we're wanting to stay stuck in this place and gravitate to those who are just going to give us empathy. This will not move us forward. This will not help us get to the next stage of our healing from the victimization. And if we don't move on, what we may do is adopt what I've called, and others have, a victim mentality. And that means seeing oneself. It's not just that a bad thing happened to me, but I am a victim. It's an identity, it's a role. It's a role that we can play in life. We get some purchase, we get some so-called benefits from being a victim. While it's appropriate to blame the perpetrator for what they did and to recognize the harm that they caused and to feel something about that and receive empathy for those feelings, it's not a place of power to blame anybody but ourselves for the choices we make next, for what we do or don't do to overcome this event that's happened to us. We may seek to be exempt from that responsibility, if we explain our wounds long enough to people, they may let us off the hook. We may think that we deserve to be let off the hook. Furthermore, we may want to be rescued. We don't see that we can do something. We believe that others need to rescue us, need to do for us what we could do for ourselves. And this can be a comfy little place to be. Not only might we appeal for an exemption to doing responsible things, but we may appeal for some kind of amnesty in our bad behavior, the things that we do to act out this trauma on others. We can make excuses for our behavior. Well, I acted that way because of this thing that happened to me, and I can't help it. It's, forgive me. My primary point in this video is that taking personal responsibility for ourselves is the heart of our power to move on from a victimization and to not make excuses for ourselves. However, I think it's a little more complicated, and I think it is important to recognize when we've been hurt in certain ways, damaged, wounded. Some things can be harder to do. We may have more fears and hesitations and a lack of confidence. We may be reactive to things that other people who weren't so unfortunate to have been victimized in this way, it's not so hard for them. So we should recognize that this is hard. It's hard to overcome these things. It's hard to resist these impulses. And not exactly cut ourselves some slack, but be kind and not compare ourselves to other people who have an easier time of it. And instead, compare ourselves to how we were yesterday and compare ourselves to how we want to be tomorrow, and not hold ourselves exactly to the same standard that we would hold other people. We're on a journey. We're trying to overcome something, and we can be kind to ourselves without just letting ourselves off the hook. We can still hold ourselves accountable and take responsibility for our actions while recognizing how challenging that could be because of having been victimized. So now I want to get right to the question of what does it mean to access our personal power when we've been victimized? And I'd like to start with suggesting some questions that we can ask ourselves. And the answers to these questions will suggest some things that we may need to do. The first question is, what have I lost? What can I get back? How can I get it back? What cannot be recovered? How can I grieve that and let it go? What do I still have? And how can I use that in moving forward? And by what do I still have, I don't just mean materially. I mean inner resources, my intelligence, my creativity, my hope, things like that. Basically, we need to take stock of what's happened and how it's affected us, how we've been wounded or damaged, what we've lost, and set out on a path of healing to figure out, what do I need to do to make myself well again? What help might I need? To take personal responsibility doesn't mean not asking for help. Definitely we can ask for help, but we're not overly relying on it. We're not asking people to do things for us that we could do for ourselves. That's the difference. And ultimately we can come up with a plan that has steps in it. We have a plan for getting back on track, for remembering what matters, remembering our goals, to modifying them if we need to, but to set our sights on a future that we can create and that we will have a hand in. To access our personal power when we've been victimized at some point means not complaining anymore, not recounting what happened and how it affected us, not appealing for sympathy or rescuing. It means letting that go. There was a time for that. Let that go and take charge. It may be that you were once a victim, but you no longer identify with that. You no longer play that role. You no longer cash that in for the benefits that can come from posing as a victim. You no longer look for rescue, and you no longer excuse yourself for bad behavior. You hold yourself accountable. You decide to stand on your own 2 feet and take responsibility for yourself. Taking responsibility for oneself is the bedrock of finding personal power. We take responsibility for our body, our mind, our relationships, our finances, our situation in life. Take responsibility for all of it to the degree to which we have any control. That's where we find personal power. Blaming others and making excuses for ourselves based on something bad that happened to us or was done to us by another, and adopting a victim mentality completely cuts us off from our personal power. The more I think about it, the clearer it is to me that every video I've done up to this point is literally about taking personal responsibility and therefore accessing our own power. That's what all of my videos are about, some angle on how to do that. So if you think that this is a valid idea and you're on board with it, you might check out my other videos because they'll provide a lot more information about how you go about it. There are many angles and aspects to this. It's a lifelong process. But taking personal responsibility gives you real traction. It'll make your tires grip the road and move you forward. And you'll begin to notice when you're slipping into victim mentality. It's like your tires are in a slippery, muddy rut and you're not getting anywhere. So if you've liked this video, give it a like, subscribe to my YouTube channel, share the video with others, leave me some comments, and check out the links below for Attention Bazaar, my online store, where you'll find mugs, t-shirts, and tote bags, including some with this slogan about personal power on it. Also, hit the bell for notifications so you can know when I put out another video. And it'll probably be on this topic one way or the other. That's all for now. Thanks for sticking with me. Wish you well. See you next time. Bye-bye.